What's going on YouTube? General Motors essentially created the large three-row luxury SUV segment, and they have continued to dominate this space to this day. As a matter of fact, their latest crop of mega luxury SUVs, the GMC Yukon Denali and Cadillac Escalade, are selling better than ever because they are better products than ever. But say you've got around $100,000 to spend, give or take. Which of these two are the ultimate in luxury and capability? Let's go ahead and see how they stack up. So as always, let's discuss the pricing and equipment levels of these two. Now there is some price overlap between the two of them if you choose a lower end Escalade, but in this comparison we're going to explore the fully loaded versus fully loaded experience. As such, we have the top end Yukon Denali Ultimate, which cost $87,200 after checking off every possible option and the destination charge. As expected, the Escalade will be more expensive than that, actually significantly so. This fully loaded Sport Platinum with all the options rings in at an eye-watering $113,815 after destination. If you get out your calculator, that's a price difference of about $27,000. Which we will discuss further at the value section of this comparison. But let's get right into the meat and potatoes of this comparison by getting into the exteriors. Obviously, these two SUVs are related, but the new generations have done a lot more to distinguish the designs than any of the past generations. For the Yukon, it hits all the classic Denali cues, such as the large satin silver grille with the typical boxy shape. On the other hand, the new Escalade departed further from its typical blingy look, especially when you choose the sport version like what we have here, which includes a blacked out mesh grille. Both of them have attention-grabbing full LED lighting, but one thing to keep in mind is that only the Yukon has fog lamps. Heading to the sides, both have large 22-inch alloys, with many other design choices also available, but otherwise they do look pretty much the same in the profile. However, around back there are a lot more differences, such as the signature full-length LED taillights on the Escalade, which have a pretty fancy entry and exit animation that's not available on the Yukon. Both of them hide the wipers and have nice-looking exhaust tips. Now moving past the design choices, both SUVs are loaded with features, like mirrors that heat, fold, auto-dim, and include blind spot monitoring. And as far as all the other safety features, as you would expect, these two will both have you covered with all the typical safety systems. But the Escalade does have one big advantage. It can be equipped with Super Cruise, a hands-free highway driving system that can even handle lane changes and passing automatically. At the time of this video, it is not currently offered on the Yukon. Next we have the warranties, where the Cadillac offers a longer one for both the basic and powertrain, but both of them have one complimentary maintenance visit. Finally, both of them can tow the same maximum of 8,200 pounds as equipped. But anyway, let's move on to the most important area, the luxury cabins, before we take them out for a drive. So walking up to the vehicles, both are obviously going to have smart entry systems, but you'll notice the Escalade's fob is more premium with real metal trim along the side. The other thing to note is that the Escalade's door handles are electronic and have a touch sensor built in behind them, while the Yukon requires you press the button. Now peeking inside the interiors themselves, they both strike you as very expensive looking, but in different ways. The Yukon has more of a classic luxury look, finished here in beige teak color combo. The Escalade has far more of a high-tech vibe to it, and it still looks very upscale despite the more subdued jet black color scheme. As far as the seats themselves, the Yukon uses a premium wide-grain leather, but nothing can beat the supple feel of the Escalade's quilted semi-aniline leather seats. Both of them have heating, ventilation, and memory, of course, but only the Escalade has multi-mode massaging. Now beyond the seats, both interiors have great materials. The GMC's cabin is beautifully crafted with leather across the upper dash and door trim, open pore wood through the middle, and then real aluminum below. Even with that, the Escalade's interior is another step above, with even greater attention to detail, like the leather trim on the screens, aluminum climate controls, Alcantara headliner, metal speaker grills, and supple leather all the way to the ground. Now after startup, this is a big area where you will notice an important difference for the 2022 models. The Yukon has now moved to a 12.3-inch full digital gauge cluster instead of the analog setup it had last year. That's a huge upgrade, but the Escalade's 14.2-inch curved OLED system is still going to win out, since it has augmented reality cameras with navigation and even night vision. Of course, it pretty much goes without saying that both have heated, leather-wrapped steering wheels with power adjustment. Now the next area to evaluate is interior storage, where the Yukon is the one that comes out ahead. While both consoles are pretty similar sizes, the GMC has more storage in the doors and the area that is taken up by the shifter in the Cadillac. The Cadillac center console is a refrigerator in this model, which explains some of that difference. Now moving on to the shifters, GMC uses a push-button style instead of the dash-mounted one in the Escalade. When you go into reverse, both 360-degree camera systems are excellent, but the Caddy has the extra ability to spin around the vehicle. Alrighty, that brings us to the audio systems. So let's go ahead and take a seat. Just like with a lot of things in this comparison, both are excellent, but the Escalade goes the extra mile for that extra 26 grand. Its 36 speaker AKG is simply one of the finest audio systems that can be equipped on any vehicle. Now let's go ahead and return to the infotainment screens. For the Yukon, we still have a 10.2-inch HD display integrated into the dashboard, but for 2022, it's moved to a new Android-based infotainment system. The Escalade is using a 16.9-inch display, which is part of the broader 38-inch curved screen setup. The OLED is able to produce amazing blacks and spectacular-looking graphics, in addition to the wow factor of the curve. Finally, ending the front part, both have rear camera mirrors and panoramic sunroofs. Now the rest of the interior will go by fast because there are a lot more similarities in the rear areas. Since these two obviously share a platform, both are going to offer almost exactly the same generous leg and headroom. The features are also largely the same, both having their own climate controls, heated rear seats, lots of connections for devices, and rear entertainment systems with streaming. Surprisingly, the Cadillac does not have vented or massaging back seats. The third row is the same story as the second, with space that's even comfortable for adults thanks to the independent rear suspension. However, the similarities run out when we get to the cargo areas. Packaging differences make the Yukon have the greater cargo capacity, behind the second row and as a maximum. That's it for the interiors, so now let's go for a spin. So as far as the powertrains are concerned, these two siblings share most things. Both come with large 6.2-liter V8s, making 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque. And that is paired to a 10-speed automatic transmission and four-wheel drive. As you would expect, that makes acceleration and 0 to 60 times identical.
And there is 60 miles an hour in the Escalade Sport Platinum. Now, of course, I probably don't have to tell you what's under the hood of this Escalade, because you probably already know just by the sound of it. It's a pretty iconic motor. It's, of course, GM's 6.2 liter V8, 420 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque, and of course it does need quite a bit of that power to get this big behemoth up to speed, but as you can see there, it definitely does a good job of getting it up to speed perfectly fine, even though this thing probably weighs goodness knows how much. And there is 60 miles an hour. Oh gosh.
Up a steep hill. Yeah, that's fast.
Wow. I mean, you know what engine this is. Do I even really need to tell you guys? You could probably hear it and just know. This is the 6.2 liter V8 that we absolutely love. Of course, it's very powerful, as you just saw up a hill. It did that acceleration. It's 420 horsepower and 460 pound-feet of torque.
Like I already mentioned, both share a 10-speed automatic transmission, which is excellent. Shifts are quick, smooth, and responsive.
It never gets old accelerating in the Escalade, that is for sure. But I was accelerating there to show you how good the 10-speed automatic transmission is. This is one of the best transmissions that we've sampled. Having 10 gears, it obviously has a lot of gears to switch through, but you never feel it switching gears at all. It's absolutely seamless, as you would expect out of a luxury SUV, but it can drop down 2 or 3 gears at a time and you absolutely feel nothing, which is of course what you want out of a luxury SUV.
Right, and for those of you who don't know, this was co-developed with Ford, so you would find the same transmission, different tuning, but the same transmission in something like the Navigator. It's arch nemesis. But of course, one of the biggest elements people want to feel in luxury SUVs is a sense of comfort in all conditions. And once again, both are delivering here. As equipped, they are both rocking GM's magnetic ride control and air suspension. That means they can float over bumps without any harsh impacts entering the cabins, while simultaneously having a remarkably maneuverable and controlled feel from behind the wheel, despite their enormous sizes. Now, before we get too far into the video, I want to go ahead and talk about what I think is one of the most important and one of the more interesting parts about this, and the fact that we have the air suspension, as we already mentioned. So, in our past reviews of Tahoe, Yukon, and Escalade, none of those have had the air suspension because it was late availability, but now we have it here on this Yukon, and I have to say, you can really tell a big difference when you're behind the wheel driving it. Of course, it already rides very nicely because you have standard magnetic ride control on the Denali, but having the additional air suspension, I think, really just smooths it out even more. I mean, this rides, frankly, fantastically. I mean, I really don't have any complaints whatsoever. It's better to me than what you get in, like, the Navigator or the Expedition. They just have adaptive dampers, but having the extra air suspension, I think, really is a big advantage over the competition. Another significant aspect in luxury feel is how quiet the cabins are. And you might be wondering if the Escalade has more sound deadening. Well, based on our testing, we can confirm that it does not, as both of them tested at a very quiet middle 50s decibel reading at 55 miles per hour. So this would be a good time for us to go ahead and get our sound level reading once we get back to 55 here.
Okay.
So we got 55.4, that was with a little bit of the engine growl in the background since we were climbing up the hill. Very good number. It gets even quieter when you're kind of coasting down.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got 54.5 decibels. That's a really nice measurement. I mean, I can just tell setting in here just how quiet it is all the time. And finally, for fuel economy, both get 16 mpg combined on premium fuel. And last but not least, we have to revisit the substantial price difference between these two of $26,615. Now obviously, prices matter a lot less to people shopping at this price point, which is why our scale is only awarding a quarter point per $1,000 of difference, or in this case, 6.75 points. Well, there you have it. Basically, these two siblings are a lot alike, but as expected, when things are different, the Escalade is usually the better of the two. So the winner of this comparison is really going to come down to your view of money and your desire to have the ultimate. Let us know in the comments below if you would choose the Escalade or save the 26 grand and go with the Yukon. Thanks for joining us for this Car Confections comparison, and be sure to subscribe for more comparisons, full in-depth reviews, and vehicles from all price points, not just luxury products like these. Take care, and we'll see you next time.